Welcome back. Time now for the politics wrap. Natasha Piri standing by to give us a sense of the deliberations in the political space. Natasha, very good evening to you. It's been an incredibly busy political climate. There have been repercussions from a fallout between the DA and the FF Plus in the Western Cape. What is the reaction on the ground?
Well, you're quite right, and shortly we'll be speaking to Professor Amanda Gous to actually give us some insights. But moving on to this story, the fallout between the Democratic Alliance and the FF Plus in the Western Cape has led to the collapse of the two municipalities, namely Oudtshoorn and Langeberg. The DA has accused the FF Plus of being involved in behind-the-scenes discussions with the ANC to oust the DA from power. But on the other hand, the FF Plus claims the DA has decided to collapse coalition governments in the Western Cape. Speaking to the SABC, the FF Plus says they'll have a meeting on Wednesday to get a mandate from their constituency in Langeberg on the way forward. Now, joining us via Teams is Professor Gous from the Stellenbosch University. Professor Gous, thank you so much for joining us on SABC News on the Politics Wrap. So I think you saw what happened over the weekend, you know, the DA playing the blame game with the FF Plus and vice versa. What do you think this actually signals for the fact that there has already been two collapses in two municipalities there in the Western Cape? Can we further see a fallout between the two parties in various other municipalities in the Western Cape?
Good evening, Natasha. I think what we see here is, of course, squabbles on the local government level, and we need to understand politics on the local level. But in the case of these two municipalities, in Oudtshoorn, the DA mayor was disposed because, according to the other parties, he was not an effective mayor, and the FF Plus actually put their vote towards getting rid of this mayor. So that really made DA very because, you know, I think they assume a natural alliance with the Freedom Front Plus that used to be an ally on the national level. And I think if we look at the politics of the DA over the years, it's tried to move towards the right to gain back some of the support of the FF Plus. So they assume some natural alliance, which I think they now see may not be the case. In Langeberg, there was a squabble around the FF Plus not wanting to vote for the budget. And the DA said that they have been in alliance to vote for the budget. And,
Professor, sorry to interject there. There seems to be something wrong with the audio. So we just quickly want to take a break and we'll come back to you. Where we left off from that conversation with Professor Gous. Of course, Professor, you were talking about the ructions between the DA and the FF Plus in the Western Cape. Let's just pick up from where you left off.
Yes, so let me return to Langeberg. So in Langeberg, there was an agreement between the DA and the FF Plus regarding the budget. And then the FF Plus abstained, and they did not vote for the budget because they weren't happy with the budget. But they argued that they asked for a discussion, and the DA, on the other hand, argued that they now, have broken that agreement. So clearly, in the coalitions on the local government, it's very unstable between the DA and the FF Plus. And I think the question here is, what does that mean then for the government of national unity on a national level? And I think, the upcoming local government elections in 2026, parties will have to agree beforehand. Are they going into these elections as partners, or are they going to oppose each other? And I think this will then, of course, have an effect on what's happening in the government of national unity, because we already see on the provincial level that Premier Lesofie in Gauteng, he has a minority party coalition, and he works with a the EFF is not working with the DA, while the DA and the ANC are actually the two big partners in the government of national unity. So who are then actually the partners going to be on a local government election? Because, are they going to be the partners that are in the government of national unity, or are they going to be actually saying that we will choose our partners as we see fit, and then it destabilizes, not only one level, but it can destabilize all three government levels.
Professor, you actually answered the other question that I had on the GNU at a national level, but just briefly and lastly, does this now set the tone? You mentioned the 2026 local government elections. Does this now set a tone for these local government elections? And what are the implications? I mean, if the DA and the FF Plus aren't finding each other right now, what can we expect in 2026 perhaps?
Well, I think, the question now is, will we see more of what's happened in Langeberg and Oudtshoorn in the Western Cape? And, the argument is made now that this is sort of particular to these two municipalities. But I think we need to see how this plays itself out now in the run-up to the 2026 election. Because it's still more than 18 months away, and I mean, we don't know to what extent this government of national unity on the national level, how long that's going to last. We hope that it will last for 5 years, but it may not. So it's all, but I think what we see is that in coalitions, if one party switches or does something that the other parties do not expect, it introduces instability into that coalition, and then, it can either collapse or they will have to start a new coalition, and then there's always a time lag that has an impact on policy making and service delivery.
Okay, Professor Amanda Gous, thank you so much for your time. Of course, that was Professor Amanda Gous, the Professor of Political Science at Stellenbosch University. For now, let's take a break and we'll be back with Anele Mda after this. So as you know, we're celebrating Women's Month, and on the Politics Wrap, we feature a woman in politics on Mondays and actually on Fridays. And now we have Anele Mda. The last time I spoke to you on the Politics Wrap, it was before the elections. You're running as an independent candidate in the Gauteng Legislature National Assembly. You didn't make it. What does the future hold for you?
Look, a man is not measured by how many times she has fallen. A man is measured by the strength that every time she has fallen, she dusts herself and she keeps the journey continuing. I think the most important thing for me is that these elections were an eye-opening and also a very good test of what one needs to understand about the broadness of the issues that we are trying to advocate for our society to be fully cognizant of. But also, and over and above that, I think the most important thing was to really be part of a history-making epoch that can never be reversed. My name will forever stay in the boldest way ever in the walls of history. There's nothing anyone can do about that. There's nothing anyone can reverse about that. And I think the most important thing is that we must be, people that are capable of inspiring the next generation, not to be fearful of, be daring in doing things that are unthinkable. And I think for me, there's a brighter future that stands ahead, because for as long as South Africa is not yet in the hands of the broader majority of the people of our country who were previously marginalized and currently disadvantaged, there's absolutely nothing to stand back and say, no, I no longer have anything to offer. There's a lot that still resides within me that must serve my country.
And Anele, talking about that brighter future, we're looking at the 2016 local government elections. Could we see Anele Mda coming up again as an independent candidate, or will you be joining any other political party? I wanted to put you on the spot with regards to this. I'm told that the MK party is somewhat looking to poach you to become their member.
Well, both before and after election. There's many political parties that obviously have reached out to me, including MK. I will not, come out clean with that. And I think there's nothing wrong with political parties seeing, capacity, identifying intellectual prowess, and also identifying a vibrancy that comes with not just, an empty shell, but a person of astute and very much rich experience that I bring in the political landscape. But I think at this moment in time, I'm really committed into being an unsigned and uncaptured voice that belongs to the masses of South Africa, because I believe that if we have not taken time to really understand the extent to which, the party political hegemony has damaged this country, we will be reversing all the gains that we're trying to advance, wanting to take this country forward. So at this point in time, I do not foresee myself playing any pivotal role in the sense of being a contender for the local government elections, but I'm an available repository and an available asset to assist those that will be emerging from grassroots, trying to raise their hands to stand for office in local government, because that is another critical sphere where we need people that do not necessarily belong to political hegemonies.
Anele, what would question why you entered politics? You talk about a rich history. I mean, you're one of those females that entered politics at a young age. You were in the ANC, you were in COPE, you went back to the ANC, you were an independent candidate. Why politics, and what have you learned in your journey as a woman in politics?
Politics is the central part of our existence as a people. Politics is where decisions strategically on a long term, on a short term, on a medium term about the people gets taken. So if you are a passive citizen that stays outside and who belongs to the periphery, you will not be informed. You will not know how to hold those in office accountable, because you know nothing about what is happening. For me, I might have been lucky that at a young age my grandfather introduced me to politics, but I personally developed interest myself as a leader when I identified that there is a role that I need to play as a leader in my country. And I got to a point where I said, I can never allow a situation where there are decision makers who are parallel to what I know about my country and my space, and I have got no way of influencing them or that space in order to know what is likely to happen tomorrow. So the fundamental importance of politics is understanding that even as you are not involved, decisions about your life, about your future, about your today, about your past, about your tomorrow are being taken. So the most important question is answering that you need to answer to yourself. Are you going to be active in that space, or you're just going to be a passive role player who is forever going to be crying for consequences that come as a result of you not participating? So for me, it's very important that I am in the political space, because decisions that are taken there,
you were once a policymaker yourself. You were in parliament. You look at the transition of how many women that are in parliament right now. I think it's 45% from what we actually came through from 1994. Are you happy that there's more female representation in parliament? But not only that, you have a speaker, Mamtoko Didiza, her deputy, the NCOP chair, who's also a female. Do you think that the country has actually done a lot in women emancipation, especially when we talk about the three arms of the state?
I think we must reach a time, at least now that we leave 30 years behind us of the democratic dispensation, we must really come out and stop this mediocre of celebrating shells. We must really speak into the creme de la creme of the kind of caliber that we deploy in these places. And we must also be able to be honest enough with ourselves to say, we have celebrated this, proportional representation, but what qualitatively have we received out of that? And I think that's where the cry is at for me at this moment in time. I mean, it doesn't help for us to count endless people that are now having arthritis. They developed that arthritis in parliament. They have used parliament as an old age home. They've used parliament as a place of comfort and shielding one another. We are not looking for parliament that must be full of couches and sofas where people are forever under duvets and comfort. We are looking for people that understand Parliament is a space for sharpening of ideas, and it is a contested space that we must use it for a progressive advancement of this country, understanding the epoch that we find ourselves in, where we envision that this country must go to, and equally, we must use that space as a space that must inspire the next generation. We no longer want parliament that must just be, a reset for people who must still think, what am I going to do when I leave here? Yes, we are happy that we have made, strides in terms of representation, but we are now no longer talking representation. We are talking qualitative contribution. What does you, Anele, by virtue of being there in Parliament, what is your rise to fame? What important contribution are you making that we can fully attribute to you as a person, regardless of the fact that we need quality contribution, not female and women representation.
And talking about quality contribution, do you think that the policies that are now in place are regressive, or not against women? I mean, I was speaking to an activist, and she said something very interesting, that we can't just only speak about GBV through Women's Month, through 16 days of activism, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's this problem. But I mean, is there an issue where, sometimes our response as a nation, or our response as policymakers, SABC, is not enough to actually deal with issues of gender-based violence? I mean, you had the president last week, correct me if I'm wrong, in his Women's Day celebrations in the Northern Cape, 1.5 million women are being abused, Anele, by their partners or people that they know. Surely something more has to happen.
In fact, we must speak on how every year in South Africa, when it's August, we are denied an opportunity to deal with issues that are supposed to be about women leadership. We are made all the years to speak about GBV. We don't speak about the need to position women at the central economic spaces where they can take charge and be responsible for strategic centers where economies are being defined, and where we are saying, previously, you wouldn't see a woman being able to enter that space. But we have been made every single August and every single November speak about one thing and one thing only: GBV and 16 days of activism. You know why? Because there is a reluctance and a resistance to expose women leadership in an unhindered and uncontrolled and uncurtailed level of leadership, where you entrust them with responsibility that says, you know what, you are an equal leader who does not need muzzling, who doesn't need to be watched, who doesn't need to be checked and this, that, and the other. But we are always confined in the GBV issue only because that is the only topic that is assigned and aligned with us as women. We are tired of being used as people whose faces represent GBV. We are not defined by GBV. We are not perpetrators of GBV. We are victims, hence we speak against it. But we can't allow August month all the time in this country to be used, because you do not want to fundamentally hold the necessary important debates. Where are you locating women strategically, where you are saying these are the areas that we're identifying strategically to identify women that we want to propel into important spaces of leadership in this country? You are always confining us in GBV because you want to use women only as reactive machineries for an issue that they are not even a cause to. So for me, the most important thing is that we don't speak about only GBV when we speak about women issues, but we speak about the need to include women on economy.
Okay, Anele, I wish we had more time for this conversation. Of course, that was Anele Mda, who is a political activist. Of course, I will be back here on Friday, but for now, let's take you to our weather with Mpo.